The rain had just started to drizzle over the city when Emily pushed open the glass doors of La Maison, the kind of restaurant that whispered luxury through candlelight and low jazz. Her heart pounded harder than she wanted to admit. Blind dates weren't her thing, but her best friend had insisted she meet this woman, smart, sweet, and totally your type, she'd said. Emily scanned the elegant dining room and spotted a woman sitting alone at a corner table. Dark hair, perfectly styled. A sharp black blazer that screamed confidence. She looked up briefly, her eyes locking with Emily's, deep, calm, and dangerous. Something about that gaze made Emily's stomach flip. "Hi," Emily said, walking over. "You must be Rachel?" The woman smiled slowly, like she already knew something Emily didn't. "I might be," she said, her voice smooth and teasing. "Please, sit." Emily did. The conversation flowed easily, almost too easily. The woman, who introduced herself as Ava, asked about Emily's art, her travels, her dreams, and she listened like every word mattered. There was something magnetic in the way she leaned forward, the way her fingers brushed the stem of her wine glass, the way her lips curved when Emily laughed. By the time dessert arrived, Emily had forgotten her nervousness entirely. She felt seen, deeply, unexpectedly seen. Then, halfway through her chocolate mousse, her phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. "Hey Emily, it's Rachel. I just got here. Where are you sitting?" Her heart froze. She looked up, her breath catching. Ava's smile widened knowingly. "You're at the wrong table," Ava murmured, her voice low and soft. Emily blinked, stunned. "Wait, what?" Ava leaned in, her perfume wrapping around her like silk. "You sat at my table. But I'm not complaining." For a moment, the world around them blurred, the candlelight flickering, the faint sound of rain, the pulse in Emily's throat. She should have gotten up, should have apologized and gone to meet the real Rachel. But Ava's eyes held her there, pulling her deeper, past logic and reason. "I think," Ava said with a quiet smile, "some mistakes are meant to happen." Emily didn't move. Something inside her whispered that her life was about to change forever, because of one wrong table, one look, one woman she was never meant to meet. Emily should have stood up and left. Her mind told her that clearly, there was another woman waiting, a real blind date named Rachel. But her heart had other plans. It refused to move, and so did she. Ava's presence filled the space like quiet fire. The way she tilted her head when she listened, the calm certainty in her movements, the warmth behind that composed smile, it was the kind of allure that didn't shout, it invited. "So," Ava said, sipping her wine, "tell me something you wouldn't normally say to a stranger." Emily laughed nervously. "That's a dangerous request." "I like dangerous," Ava replied softly, her eyes glinting. Something about the way she said it, slow, deliberate, made Emily's pulse race. She leaned in unconsciously, drawn closer. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll go first. I haven't been on a date in over a year. I told myself I wasn't ready." Ava's gaze softened. "And now?" "Now," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly, "I'm starting to wonder what I've been waiting for." Ava smiled, not triumphantly, but tenderly, as though she understood something deeper than words. "Maybe you were waiting for the wrong table." The air between them thickened, charged, fragile, alive. Around them, the restaurant faded into a blur of clinking glasses and quiet laughter. For a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. When the waiter came to clear the plates, Ava reached for the bill, but Emily stopped her. Their fingers brushed, a brief, electric touch that sent warmth rushing up her arm. Both froze for a second longer than necessary. "You really don't have to," Emily began. "I want to," Ava interrupted gently, her voice low. "Let me." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the pavement glistening under the streetlights. Ava held the door open for her, and the cool air carried the scent of rain and something new, something unspoken. "Thank you for letting me steal your evening," Ava said, her tone playful but her eyes serious. "Steal?" Emily smiled. I think I gave it willingly. Ava took a step closer, her expression unreadable. Then maybe I'll have to see you again, so you can take it back. Emily laughed softly, though her chest tightened with something dangerously close to hope. She didn't know who Ava really was, just that she was drawn to her like gravity. As Ava's car door closed and the taillights disappeared down the wet street, Emily stood there, heart racing, phone buzzing again in her hand. Emily? Still waiting for you, did something happen? It was Rachel. The date that never was. Emily sighed and typed back slowly. I think I sat at the wrong table, but maybe it was the right one. 2 days passed, but the memory of that evening refused to fade. Emily tried to paint, to work, to distract herself, but every color she mixed, every brushstroke she drew, somehow reminded her of Ava's voice, her laugh, her steady, magnetic gaze. Finally, she gave in. She sent a message. You owe me a second evening. Ava replied within minutes. I was hoping you'd say that. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. I'll send a car. When the sleek black sedan stopped in front of Emily's apartment the next evening, she realized this wasn't going to be an ordinary date. The driver opened the door, greeting her by name. She was taken to the edge of the city, to a glass-walled penthouse that looked out over the skyline, golden light spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Ava was waiting there, barefoot, holding 2 glasses of wine. Welcome to my world, she said softly. Emily looked around in awe. You live here? Ava smiled, a hint of shyness flickering across her face, the first real crack in her calm exterior. Yes. It's quieter above everything. Fewer distractions. Emily turned toward her. And what exactly do you do up here? Build things, Ava said. Companies. Ideas. Sometimes, walls. It took Emily a second to realize the last word wasn't about architecture. The evening unfolded gently, soft music, shared laughter, stories about childhood dreams and heartbreaks. Yet beneath the warmth, there was something restrained about Ava. She listened deeply but revealed little. At one point, Emily wandered toward a wall lined with framed photographs, Ava standing beside city skylines, charity galas, and CEOs. Her smile in those photos was different, practiced, polite, guarded. You're, Emily started, turning back. You're Ava Moreau. The Ava Moreau. The founder of Halo Technologies? Ava looked down, almost embarrassed. I didn't mean to hide it. I just wanted one night where someone didn't look at me like a headline. Emily felt her heart twist. You think I would? I don't know, Ava admitted softly. People always want something from me. Money, opportunity, attention. No one just stays. Emily stepped closer, catching the faint flicker of vulnerability in Ava's eyes. Then maybe you haven't been sitting at the right tables either. Ava laughed quietly, a sound that melted something in the room. Maybe not. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city lights painted Ava's face in gold and silver, and Emily couldn't look away. Stay for dinner, Ava said finally. No headlines. No masks. Emily nodded, not because she planned to, but because she already knew she wasn't leaving. Outside, the world glittered. Inside, 2 women stood on the edge of something neither had planned, but both were beginning to crave. Ava's kitchen didn't look like it belonged to a millionaire. It was open and homey, scattered with spice jars, recipe books, and the faint scent of roasted herbs. Emily smiled as she watched Ava move with surprising ease, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, barefoot on the polished floor. I didn't expect you to cook, Emily said, leaning against the counter. Ava smirked. Most people don't. But when I need to breathe, I cook. The sound of sizzling olive oil filled the air. Ava handed her a piece of bread dipped in garlic and herbs. Taste this. Emily did, and her eyes widened. That's amazing. Ava's gaze softened. You make that sound like a compliment I'll remember. Maybe it is. They laughed together, The kind of laughter that felt easy and dangerous at the same time, the kind that lingered long after the joke faded. Dinner was simple: pasta, a bottle of red wine, and soft music humming from the background. Emily felt strangely at home here, sitting across from someone she'd met by accident. Ava listened to her like she was studying poetry, and every glance carried an unspoken warmth. After dinner, they moved to the balcony. The city below shimmered in gold lights, and the night breeze carried a quiet calm. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you," Emily said softly. Ava turned to her, eyes reflecting the skyline. "Someone like me?" "Someone who makes silence feel beautiful." For a long moment Ava didn't respond. She just looked at Emily, really looked, and something in her expression shifted. The guarded strength gave way to tenderness. "You have no idea what that means to me." They stood there, inches apart, the world fading into distant sound. Emily could feel the heat of Ava's presence, the quiet rhythm of her breathing. It wasn't about words anymore. It was about being seen, completely, fearlessly, beautifully. Ava reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair behind Emily's ear. The touch was light, reverent, almost hesitant. Emily closed her eyes, a soft breath escaping her lips. When she opened them again, Ava was smiling, that rare, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I don't know what this is," Ava whispered, "but it feels like something I don't want to lose." Emily nodded, heart fluttering. "Then don't." The night settled around them, wrapping them in warmth and possibility. It wasn't a confession, not yet, but it was close enough to feel real. The following morning, sunlight spilled through the penthouse windows, soft and golden. Emily had stayed late the night before, talking with Ava until the city fell quiet. She hadn't meant to, but time slipped through their fingers, hours dissolving into stories, laughter, and long pauses that said more than words could. Now, she stood at the window, wrapped in a blanket, gazing at the skyline. The city looked different from here, smaller, slower, somehow less intimidating. "Coffee?" Ava's voice came from behind her. Emily turned to find her in an oversized white shirt, holding 2 mugs. The casualness of it, the contrast to Ava's usual polished composure, made Emily smile. "You're full of surprises," she said, taking a mug. "Only for people who make me forget my schedule," Ava replied, sitting beside her. "And that never happens." They sipped in silence for a while. Then Ava spoke again, quieter. "You know, I built everything I have from nothing. Every deal, every decision, every late night. But lately," she hesitated, eyes fixed on the horizon. "It all feels heavy. Like I've surrounded myself with people, but none of them actually see me." Emily looked at her, moved by the vulnerability in her tone. "Maybe you needed someone who doesn't care about your title, just you." Ava's lips curved faintly. "Maybe I already found her." The words hung between them, warm and terrifying. Emily's heart thudded. She wanted to say something, but the intensity in Ava's eyes left her speechless. Ava stood then, walking toward a small studio corner Emily hadn't noticed before, a space filled with canvases, paint, and unfinished sketches. "You paint, right? I wanted to show you this." Emily followed, curious. "You paint?" "Sometimes," Ava admitted. "When I can't think my way through something, I paint it instead." Emily's gaze fell on one of the canvases. It was abstract, streaks of blue and gold, rough but emotional. "This is beautiful," she whispered. Ava shook her head. "It's chaos. Like me." "No," Emily said gently. "It's honest." Ava turned toward her, eyes glistening slightly. For someone so powerful, she suddenly looked fragile, like the world had given her everything except softness. Without thinking, Emily reached out and took her hand. Ava didn't pull away. Instead, she stepped closer, their fingers intertwining naturally. "I don't do this," Ava said softly. "Letting people in. It's easier to be the woman everyone expects, not the one I actually am." "Then stop being who they want," Emily whispered. "Be who you are." Ava looked at her for a long, unbroken moment, and Emily could feel the walls Ava had built begin to tremble. And in that fragile silence, between fear and longing, power and tenderness, something real began to bloom. Days turned into weeks, and what started as an accident became a rhythm neither of them wanted to break. Emily found herself visiting Ava's penthouse more often, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to talk. It wasn't about luxury or the city view anymore. It was about the stillness that existed between them, a quiet space that felt like belonging. Ava had a way of listening that made Emily feel like the only person in the world. And Emily, in turn, made Ava laugh, a real, unguarded laugh that even she seemed surprised to hear. One evening, Ava invited Emily to a charity event. "You don't have to," she said, "but I'd like you there." Emily hesitated. "Are you sure? I'm not exactly high society material." Ava smiled. "That's exactly why I want you there." The night of the event, Ava looked breathtaking, elegant in a black gown, her hair swept back, eyes lined in gold. But when she saw Emily walk in, simple dress, natural beauty, a little nervous, Ava forgot about everyone else in the room. "You look," Ava started, then shook her head. "I don't have words." Emily blushed. "That's a first." Throughout the evening, Ava introduced her to people who spoke in polished tones and empty compliments. Emily smiled politely, but it was clear she didn't fit the mold. She didn't fake her charm or play along, and Ava loved her even more for it. Later, when the speeches and music faded, they stepped out onto the terrace overlooking the glittering skyline. "Do you ever feel," Emily said softly, "like all of this, the success, the power, it keeps you from really living?" Ava looked at her, something raw flickering in her eyes. "Every day. Until you." Emily met her gaze, heart trembling. "That's a dangerous thing to say." "I know," Ava said. "But I stopped caring about safe things the night you sat at my table." The air between them shifted, the hum of the city fading into silence. Emily could feel Ava's heartbeat, steady and close. There were 1,000 reasons to keep her distance, and not a single one that mattered anymore. Ava reached for her hand. "Come with me this weekend," she said suddenly. "Just you and me. Somewhere quiet. No meetings, no headlines, no expectations." Emily's breath caught. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Ava whispered. "I don't want to lose what this is. I want to see who we are when the world isn't watching." For a moment, Emily didn't speak. Then she smiled, small, certain, and full of something real. "Okay," she said. "Let's disappear." And as the city lights shimmered around them, Ava felt something she hadn't felt in years, freedom. Not from her empire, but from the loneliness she'd built inside it. Ava's idea of somewhere quiet turned out to be a cottage by the sea. It sat at the edge of a small coastal town where cliffs met waves and the air smelled like salt and wildflowers. When they arrived, Emily stood on the porch, watching gulls circle over the water. "It's beautiful," she said. Ava smiled, setting their bags down. "It's where I go when I need to remember who I am." Inside, the cottage was simple, soft sheets, shelves of books, the faint scent of cedar. No screens, no city noise. Just stillness. For the first time, Emily saw Ava without the armor of her success. Hair undone, bare feet on the wooden floor, laughter spilling freely. They spent the first day walking along the shore, collecting shells, and talking about nothing in particular. Emily told stories about her art, Ava shared pieces of her childhood she'd never told anyone, memories of growing up in a small apartment, dreaming of changing the world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sea in orange and gold, Ava looked at her and said, "Do you ever think about how random life is? How one wrong table can lead you exactly where you were meant to be?" Emily smiled softly. Maybe it wasn't wrong at all. They sat by the fire that night, the waves crashing in the distance. The world outside felt impossibly far away. Ava stared into the flames, then spoke quietly. "When I was younger, I thought love was a distraction. Something that slowed you down. But now," she looked up at Emily. Now I think it's the only thing that makes all the noise worth it. Emily reached out, brushing Ava's hand. Then maybe it's time you let it in. Ava took a shaky breath. You make that sound easy. It's not, Emily whispered. But it's real. The firelight flickered across their faces as they sat closer, shoulders touching, both silent and content. Ava leaned her head against Emily's, and for once, she wasn't the woman in control of everything, she was simply herself. Later, as the cottage filled with the sounds of wind and sea, Ava spoke again, voice barely a whisper. When I first saw you walk toward me that night, I thought you were a stranger. But now, you feel like something I've known all my life. Emily turned to her, heart full. That's because I was meant to sit at your table. Ava smiled, a real, unguarded smile that reached her eyes. And I was meant to never let you leave. Outside, the tide came in, washing the shore clean. Inside, two souls who weren't looking for love had somehow found it, in the most unexpected place, a simple mistake that became everything. When they returned to the city, it felt different. The streets buzzed with the same noise, but Emily noticed the way Ava walked beside her, lighter, freer, like she'd left a piece of her old armor by the sea. Ava's world quickly tried to reclaim her. There were meetings, phone calls, interviews, endless decisions. But now, Emily's presence lingered through it all, a quiet anchor in the storm. One afternoon, as Ava sat in her office overlooking the skyline, her assistant knocked and said, Ms. Moreau, the investors are ready for you. Ava looked at her calendar, then at the small seashell sitting on her desk, one Emily had picked up during their weekend. She smiled softly. Tell them they can wait 5 minutes. She called Emily. Lunch today? Emily's laughter came through the line. Are you actually skipping a meeting for me? I'm skipping the whole world for you, Ava said. They met at a small cafe, nothing fancy, mismatched chairs, warm bread, sunlight through the windows. Emily had paint on her fingertips and a sparkle in her eyes. You look happy, Ava said. I am, Emily replied. Because I finally met someone who doesn't need to be perfect, just real. Ava reached across the table, taking her hand. You make me want to be both. The moment felt simple and enormous all at once, two women in the middle of an ordinary day, realizing that love doesn't need grand gestures to be real. It just needs honesty. Weeks later, Ava hosted a small charity dinner, the kind she used to dread. But this time, she didn't stand behind her empire, she stood beside Emily. Cameras flashed, but Ava didn't care. For the first time, she wasn't posing, she was living. As the night wound down, Emily leaned close and whispered, You know, if I hadn't sat at the wrong table. Ava smiled. You did. But maybe fate was just correcting the seating plan. They laughed, and it was the kind of laughter that comes from knowing you've finally found your place in someone's life. Later, when the guests were gone and the city lights shimmered outside, Ava turned to Emily. You changed everything. My work, my world, even the way I breathe. I used to think love was a risk I couldn't afford. Emily touched her cheek. And now? Now I think it's the only thing worth investing in, Ava whispered. The night carried their quiet laughter into the city, a reminder that sometimes, the greatest love stories begin with the smallest mistakes. Because Emily hadn't just sat at the wrong table. She'd found the right heart. And Ava Moreau, the woman who once believed she needed no one, finally knew what forever looked like.